Welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network, coming to you from the TeacherCast studios since 2011. Join us each week as we bring you the latest educational news, EdTech updates, and hottest interviews with today's most influential leaders in education. And now, for your host, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 65. Today, we're going to be having our second part of our October special on how you guys are going to be creating an amazing educational technology plan. This is, of course, a second in a series of 4 shows where we're going to help you guys get digitally organized and put your school district on the path to digital success. Hope you've had a chance to check out our episode last week where we talked about the 3 important documents that every single school district needs. Today, we're going to learn about what your tech integration plan needs and how your school district can prepare to put it together. Of course, I want to say thank you guys to everybody out there who's been checking out all the great stuff over on teachercast.net every single Monday. We post this podcast, our Ask the Tech Coach show, but that's not all we do on TeacherCast. We also offer several great podcasts, including Educational Podcasting Today, the podcast that helps you bring educational audio and video into your classroom. If you're looking to bring podcasts into your lesson plans this year, check out everything over on educationalpodcasting.com. That's educationalpodcasting.com. And of course, this week we're also launching a new episode of the TeacherCast podcast featuring some amazing students doing something interesting with their world and being a part of the Conrad Challenge. It is a great episode talking about how students are really taking control of not only the problems that they're seeing in their school district, but they're seeing around the world. I highly recommend you guys check it out over on teachercast.net this week, and check out all the great stuff by subscribing to us over on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. My friends, thank you. I am looking forward to this episode. Have you ever had an opportunity as a tech coach to be a part of the planning process in your school district? You'd be surprised at how many tech coaches I talk to that when I ask how many of you guys actually are invited into administrative meetings to plan the future of their school districts, how many of those tech coaches say no? Now, if that's you, please do me a favor, raise your hand. Only with one hand if you're driving right now, but please raise your hand. You see, one of the things that our school districts have the responsibility of doing is paving the way for what the future of education looks like, trying to figure out what they want students to have and be as they leave that school district at graduation, what they want their students to know as they graduate into and out of middle school. Now, the problem with all of these conversations is the learning, the professional learning that happens for our teachers more often than not falls on the shoulders of us as tech coaches. But rarely do I find that school districts actually bring tech coaches into these conversations. In fact, rarely do I find that tech coaches are being looked at as the experts that they are. And so there's a disconnect in here. And when we're looking at this entire month of October, when we're looking at putting together our EdTech integration plan, I want you to remember that you are the absolute vital key that puts your school district on the right path. You are the one that's in the classroom. You are the one that came out of the classroom. You are the one that's taking everything that happens and putting it into good practice when you create your professional development, when you create your workshops with your teachers, when you create your digital learning plans, when you create your weekend, your newsletters. Everything in here all rests on your shoulders. So why is it that tech coaches are not brought into the administration meetings? We would love to have those questions for you guys, and we want to know what you guys are looking at. If you guys are out on Twitter, follow us at Ask the Tech Coach. We would love to hear from you and learn how you guys are being used in your classroom. Of course, also check us out over on AskTheTechCoach.com, and at the bottom of all of our pages, we have a contact form. We would love to hear from you and learn how your districts are using you guys. So that's what we're talking today about, ways to plan your EdTech integration plan effectively. And that is going to be the topic of this week's Mastermind meeting. I am looking forward to it. This week on Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be holding our October Tech Coach Mastermind meeting. It is not too late to get involved in this and to get yourself registered. Head on over to teachercast.net/mastermind and join our group today of tech coaches, tech directors, and professional development providers. And you can learn the tools to create not only an effective EdTech integration plan, but the tools needed to create a digital future for your students. Of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show last week, we talked about those 3 amazing documents that every school district has at their disposal: their strategic plan, their technology plan, and this tech integration plan. And we have one question from somebody in our audience. We want to say thank you to all the tech coaches that write to us each and every week. And the question is, have you as a tech coach looked at your district's strategic plan? I know when that person came in and asked that question, I know it was a universal. And so I'm going to throw it back at you guys. How many of you have actually looked at your strategic plan? I did a few coaching sessions this week with members of our mastermind group and other tech coaches who actually reached out. And we looked at their tech integration plans. We looked at their strategic plans. And we realized that most strategic plans have short-term and long-term goals. 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plans, etc. And we realized that out of those goals and objectives, the majority of them have to do with things that our tech coaches are being asked to do. So the question that I have for you today is, have you guys ever looked at your strategic plan and really taken an understanding of how your district goals fall onto your shoulders? I bet, my friends, you would be surprised to see how many of our district goals are in there into things that you have directed into your job descriptions. And really, that's where today's show comes from. How do we take those district goals? How do we take our technology plan that we talked about last week and really start to effectively plan our technology integration program? So let's take a look at some of the things here. Just to recap, in case you haven't had a chance to check out our shows in the past, especially episode number 64 last week, what are we talking about? What is our EdTech integration plan? Our EdTech integration plan is that document that is created from our strategic plan and from our technology plan that really talks about what the digital learning is going to look like in our district, how we are going to be providing professional development, when we're going to be providing professional development, and helps provide those benchmarks for student learning. It is an all-encompassing document that really, it's not something that a tech coach can do alone. It's not even something that a building can do alone. It really is a district-wide initiative. There's a lot of reasons why we can't really do it on one day. It's a planning. Today we're going to be talking all about the reasons why we're planning these different things. It is important, my friends, that we have these conversations with our staff about what they see in the classrooms and what they are being taught and how they're being taught. These conversations start at the principal level. Again, this goes back to some of the episodes we did in September about what does the administration want to see from our students? What does the administration want to see when they walk in to do their observations with the teachers? Other great things that we can do to get ready to plan for this document is to seek out other tech coaches, other administrations. In fact, have an evening where maybe you invite other school districts around you together to come together and talk about what does digital learning look like, not only in your school district, but really in the county. What does our community value and what does our community at large feel that our students need to be ready for when it comes to college and career readiness? I would challenge you guys, invite other school districts together, hold a Google Hangout, do a virtual learning, do a Twitter chat out there, compare what is happening with your strategic plans, your technology plans, and really bring together those teachers, administrators, and tech coaches and start asking them the difficult questions. Questions such as, how do we define digital learning? Many of us look at the idea of, oh, my students have a Chromebook, they must be digital learners. My teachers have Chromebooks, they must know all about teaching in a digital environment. You'd be surprised at what the answers could be. And I bet you'd be surprised at when you start to do observations from a coach's point of view, what the answers actually are. Looking at how students are being taught in the classroom is the number one factor when it comes to putting together these plans. Do teachers know how to teach in a one-to-one environment? And if so, how can we progress them to that next level? And if not, how can we help them get the skills to teach and not be afraid of the technology? Are the teachers actually comfortable in teaching in that digital classroom? Do they know what to do? Do they often ask students to use Chromebooks as search tools, as digital learning environments, or are they just using them as tools in the classroom to keep them busy when paper worksheets aren't available? And then, of course, it's the questions that we have to ask each other of, are we properly supporting teachers in their digital classrooms? Are we providing them with the right technologies? Do they have Chromebooks that are missing keys? Do they have Chromebooks that have broken screens? Are the batteries up to charge? Are we able to help out with technology? Because let's face it, if teachers are being asked to teach in a digital environment, but they're not being supported with the hardware, the software, the Wi-Fi, all of those things that we talk about in our tech plan, they're going to get frustrated. They're not going to want to have PD. They're not going to understand the value, and they're certainly not going to enjoy the journey that we're taking them on. So having them being supported by great, up-to-date modern technology is the first key thing to help properly support our teachers. The second, of course, is professional development. Once they have the technology, how are we teaching them? Is it in a large group? District-wide, for example? Is it in smaller group, meaning department level or grade level? Is it one-to-one? Is it through newsletters? Is it through online courses? Having those conversations and getting the feedback is one of the best things that we can do when starting to plan our EdTech integration plan. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about getting teacher buy-in and teacher feedback next week in our episode, but it's really understanding here what those difficulties are for our teachers. I'm a teacher, you're a teacher, your administrators are all teachers. And by being so, we're crazy busy. We've got a lot of stuff on our mind. Professional development might just be one of a million things that we have to worry about each and every month. So look, you got to understand that there are difficulties in having these conversations, even though teachers are interested in moving forward. And of course, teachers are interested in helping out their students. It's about finding and allowing teachers to have that time in their schedule to breathe, relax, have conversations. And I would even say to be vulnerable to putting themselves in a situation where they have to ask for help, where they have to say to a tech coach, I'm not comfortable doing this. Can you help me? After all, it's the tech coach and the administration and really everybody on the staff whose job it is to not only celebrate the accomplishments happening, but also celebrate the failures. We always say that failure is first attempt in learning, something I believe, something I'm doing right now in my position as a broadcasting teacher and as a new tech coach. I'm making mistakes. I feel like a new teacher all over again, even though I've been doing this for the last almost 2 decades. Celebrating what works, celebrating what doesn't work, and figuring out how to learn from both. These are just some of the questions that you should be having, not only with your administration team, but also as your teachers. And those are the things that are so important to us as tech coaches. Of course, in addition to having these great conversations, it's also important to be getting things ready for the next steps. Things like our ISTE standards. Of course, we have ISTE standards for students, for teachers, for administrators, and yes, for coaches. And they were just, I believe, redone, or they're getting finished being redone. I know they were talking about that over the summertime. But really using these ISTE standards to define our verticals. And what do I mean by verticals? By verticals, of course, I mean by what happens between 5th grade and 6th grade. 6th grade and 7th grade, middle school and high school. So that way we as tech coaches can create these digital learning plans for our teachers that says our 9th grade students are going to be working on these types of activities. So our teachers need this kind of professional development. Our 8th grade teachers are going to be working on these activities because, well, that's what the 9th grade teachers want. And our 7th grade teachers are going to be working on activities with students because that's what the 8th grade teachers want. Bringing everybody together to come up with a master plan that is going to be that one document, that EdTech integration plan. I can't talk about it enough. And of course, if you guys have other questions on how to build this, what to do, please reach out to us over on Ask the Tech Coach on Twitter. We would love to have a conversation with you, or you can always email us at feedback@teachercast.net. See, here's the deal. I'm going to wrap this thing up, make this a shorter podcast than usual, but here's the big deal. Number one, everything that we do as tech coaches, everything that we do as educators, everything we do as school districts starts with our students. Not only does it start with our students, but it ends with our students. The focus of our EdTech integration plan is to remember that it is a document that, first of all, needs to be flexible, but it doesn't only declare what students will be learning during the year, but how they're going to be learning and how the tech coach is going to be interacting with that learning that leads to drive towards a digital learning environment. Now, look, over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking heavily about EdTech integration plans. This is, of course, the basis of what we're working on in our mastermind. So many tech coaches are looking at this document going, how do I create this? How do I help lead my district with this? And how can I help use a document like our EdTech integration plan to focus me between multiple buildings? Again, if you're a tech coach in multiple buildings, raise your hand. I've been there. I know the pain of going in, not knowing that one principal wants you doing one thing and one principal wants you doing something else. I know the pain of going and having a great relationship with one or two principals and hardly having a relationship with other principals. I've been there. I've seen it. And I am here to help you guys out. That is why we created the Mastermind. That's why we do this podcast. And that's why you can check out all the resources over on AskTheTechCoach.com. I hope you've had a chance to check all of that stuff out. Now, next week on episode number 66, we're going to be talking about how to continue to include our teachers on your professional development plan. Understanding what our teachers want is the best way to understand what it is you as a tech coach need to be doing every week. We're going to dive into things like creating daytime PD, after school PD, lunch and learns. We're going to talk about newsletters. Again, we did that a few weeks ago, but we're going to wrap that up in there. We're also going to be talking about online learning courses, and we're going to be dealing with many, many ways of creating meaningful and effective professional development, all based on the conversations that you are having with your teacher. So don't miss that episode next week, number 66. And again, check out everything over on teachercast.net/mastermind. It is not too late to sign up for this month's meeting. We would love to have you. That's teachercast.net/mastermind. Well, everybody, that does it for this week's edition of the TeacherCast Educational Network's Ask the Tech Coach podcast. I hope you guys have had a great time with this show. I want to remind you guys that we are here each and every Monday morning. We drop the show around 5 or 6 o'clock a.m., just in time for your Monday morning commute. We are doing some amazing things, and I hope you guys have a chance to take a moment and check us out over on Apple Podcasts. And if you could do us a favor, leave us a review over there. It would be really, really helpful, and I would love to see you guys interact with the show. We're looking for other great topics as we come through here in November and December. If you have any great topics, check us out. And again, find us on Twitter at Ask the Tech Coach. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. Well, everybody, that wraps up this episode. On behalf of everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCast Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at TeacherCast or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.